Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I'm so glad you're here today. In the mid-1990s, Miami was gripped by fear. There was a series of murders along the Tamiami Trail, which is a historic highway connecting Tampa and Miami through the Everglades. The bodies of strangled women began turning up over and over, and the police knew they had a serial killer on their hands, but they couldn't seem to catch him. Most of the women were sex workers, and we know all too well that when sex workers get murdered, their murders are often treated as a low priority. But as I researched this case, I was pleasantly surprised to see the police worked it very hard. A lot of times in older cases, we do not see sex workers' murders treated as top priority. I think that's something that's getting better. Sex workers' lives are just as important as anyone else's. But the police and the public were very disturbed by these murders, and the cops did what they could to solve them. Today, we are talking about serial killer Rory Enrique Conde. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. It helps a lot. This is the story of the Tamiami Trail Strangler. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Rory Enrique Conde was born in Colombia in 1965 and moved to the United States during his youth. His upbringing was marked by instability and trauma, including reported instances of sexual abuse by a family member. These early experiences may have contributed to the psychological issues that would later manifest in Rory's life. We know that Rory Conde did not like his father, and he thought he was emotionally abusive. Gustavo Conde was an airline worker who didn't have much to do with raising his children. Rory's mother died of tetanus when Rory was only 6 months old, and so Rory and his sister Nellie were raised by their maternal grandmother, Maria Rojas. When Rory was 12, he was sent to live with his father in Miami, and he claims that he suffered physical and sexual abuse at the hands of Gustavo. These claims have never been corroborated, but that doesn't mean they aren't true. Rory was a very quiet kid. He didn't have a lot of friends. He was introverted, and those who knew him describe him as a loner. Now, everything I just said could be applied to so many killers that we talk about here on Dark Hearts, and that is why this conversation matters. We know that young men who suffer abuse during childhood, who are introverted, who are loners, some would call them incels, are the most likely to become violent. But there are also many, many men who are loners, who were abused, that do not become violent. The question is, how do we learn to spot the men who are potentially dangerous? There are a different set of circumstances who apply to violent women. Today, we're talking specifically about the loner, introvert, shy man. The man who grew up as a loner, introvert, shy boy. Sometimes when that is combined with childhood abuse, we see disastrous outcomes. Rory Enrique Conde met a woman named Carla in 1985, and the two got married. They eventually had 2 children, a boy, Rory Jr., and a girl, Nydia. Rory was attending classes at Miami-Dade College, but he dropped out, and he started working for a lumber company. Now, this caused a great deal of financial strain on the family, so much so that they had to move in with Carla's parents because they weren't able to afford a place on their own. As the strain on the marriage worsened, so did Rory's temper. He was known to some people as a friendly and helpful neighbor, but as time went on, those same neighbors began to see and hear the vicious and violent fights that Rory and Carla got into. One night, while Carla was pregnant, the couple began arguing. Rory grabbed Carla and pushed her out of the apartment while she was totally naked. Carla stood outside crying, and Rory eventually let her back in the house. The couple moved out of Carla's parents' home and got their own apartment in 1989, but the fighting continued. One night in 1991, Carla came home from work early, and she saw that the family video recorder was set up in a bedroom. She wasn't expected home. And here is this videotape recorder set up. So Carla put the tape in the VCR and was shocked to see a woman on the video, a woman she didn't know, wearing her lingerie and laying on her bed, pleasuring herself. Carla was, of course, very angry, and she confronted Rory about this. When she did, Rory beat Carla very badly, and this led to him being arrested for domestic battery. For the next 3 years, Rory and Carla would break up and then reconcile in a vicious cycle. My mind always goes to the children and how difficult this must have been for them to watch their parents engaged in this type of behavior. The couple's life was fraught with turmoil and the marriage continued to disintegrate. By 1993, Rory and Carla were no longer sleeping together, and Rory was disappearing for long periods of time. He told Carla that he was fishing in the Florida Keys. That was not what this man was doing. Rory would leave his wife and kids to go and stalk women in the neighborhood. Late at night, this guy was creeping around suburban neighborhoods, spying on women in the bedrooms while he masturbated. He was a peeping Tom. One night in 1993, Carla decided that she was going to sit outside Rory's work and then follow him to see where he went after work. Instead of seeing her husband head off for the Keys to go fishing, she watched him peeping in women's windows. Carla followed her husband all night, and she was horrified at what he was doing, but she stayed with him. Sometimes it is just not economically feasible for people to leave. But the first time you catch somebody doing something like that, or hitting you, or anything else, start saving up those bucks, because it's only going to get worse. By early 1994, Rory was working at Booker & Company as a building supplies salesman. People at work liked him. He was helpful and outgoing, and his coworkers had no idea that he'd been arrested for domestic violence and for peeping, which is a sex crime. There was something else that people didn't know about Rory Conde. He was visiting prostitutes a lot. He was living a double life, friendly salesperson by day, creepy pervert by night. By July of 1994, Carla had finally had enough. She took the couple's 2 children and she left Rory. He was enraged. Rory told Carla that if he ever found out she was dating another man, he would kill her. He stalked Carla, he followed her, and he called constantly. When that didn't work, Rory tried being nice to Carla, telling her that he would change if she came back, but Carla was done. She told Rory that the marriage was over and she was seeking a divorce. That sent Rory Conde over the edge. He'd lost his wife, he'd lost his children, and that meant he'd lost control over the victims of his abuse. People in his life knew that he was having a hard time and, like I said, starting to spiral, but no one had any idea of how far down Rory Conde had fallen. It's a hot late summer night in Miami, Florida. A 27-year-old sex worker named Lazaro Comasana had been reported missing. Lazaro often dressed as a woman, but they were biologically a man. And we know this is a very dangerous way to make a living, as we often see sex workers murdered when someone who has picked them up finds out that they are not actually female. The police were searching the area of Flagami, which is a neighborhood in Miami. And that is when they found Lazaro's body. They had last been seen near the Tradewinds Motel after Lazaro was reported missing. The police went to the hotel room they had been staying in. They found drug paraphernalia in the room, and they knew that there was a good chance Lazaro had met with foul play. Lazaro often used the names Vanessa and Jessica, and they had friends who were very concerned about them. Lazaro was found face down beside a lamppost in a very nice neighborhood that was well lit. Somebody wanted the police to find this body. Lazaro was wearing white spandex shorts and a long dark skirt. They had bleached blonde hair when they were found, lying there, just dumped. They were found by a woman who was delivering newspapers. The police began to spread the word throughout the world of sex workers in the area to let them know they might be in danger. This was a very well-manicured neighborhood that had little crime and was most definitely not a place where bodies turn up under the streetlights. And then it happened again. On October 8th, 1994, 44-year-old Elisa Daphne Martinez went missing. Elisa was a sex worker who struggled with drug addiction. Around 11:30 on the 8th, Elisa's body was found on the 1070 block of Southwest 2nd Street. Now the police were more concerned. Elisa had also been strangled and dumped in a nice neighborhood right near the sidewalk where the body would be quickly and easily found. This was cause for great concern.
This woman looks like she's waiting for a bus. She is not. According to businessmen on the Tamiami Trail, she's a prostitute, working a street lined with no-tell motels, where there's plenty of evidence of drinking and drugs, and in the past month, there's new evidence of murder. On a September Saturday, neighbors discovered the strangled body of a transvestite prostitute, Lazaro Comisana. The second Saturday in October, Eliza Martinez was also found strangled. Police say one of the victims tested positive for the AIDS virus. Both had drug habits. Both were last seen walking Southwest 8th Street, as this woman does today. Police are looking at the possibility the same murderer committed both crimes and may strike again.
There's enough similarities that the cases really both stand out to us as possibly the same person.
And police say if they are dealing with a serial killer here, there's a good chance prostitutes are not the only target. Police say a man convicted for killing Miami prostitutes in the 1980s killed other women as well.
And it's in and out. They drop them off, another one picks them up.
This businessman is talking about the high-traffic sex trade that plagues his street, although news of the murders has slowed things down.
I haven't seen one. Not one at all.
We don't want to alarm the community at large.
It's too soon to sound the alarm, the police chief says, yet he's urging all women on the streets to be careful. Sue Keenan, Channel 10 Eyewitness News.
Weeks later, the killer returned. On November 20th, 1994, the body of 23-year-old Charity Faye Nava was discovered in West Dade on a frontage road. This time, the killer left a note. He had taken a pen to Charity's back and buttocks and written the word third, meaning his third victim. He had also written, "I will call Dwight Chan 10. This was a reference to WPLG news anchor Dwight Lauderdale, who worked at Channel 10. Underneath that, the killer drew two eyes, meaning see, and then he wrote, "If you can catch me." So, see if you can catch me. He signed this terrible note with the initials NYR. It would later be determined that NYR stood for Roy's children, Nydia and Rory, and the letter Y meaning and in Spanish. So it's not sick enough what this guy is doing. He's going to drag his children into it? I mean, we hear a lot of sick stuff here. Bringing your kids into a crime like this is absolutely unimaginable. Now, the police did not release any information on the body that had writing on it, and they hadn't released information about other bodies with writing on them. They were keeping this secret, but the other bodies had writing on them as well. And this is how the police knew they had a serial killer. Charity Faye Nava was also a sex worker, so that was further confirmation that the killer was targeting area prostitutes. Just 5 days later, the body of 38-year-old Wanda Cook Crawford was found in the parking lot of an apartment complex. There was a catch, though. Wanda had not been strangled. She had been asphyxiated. This caused some investigators to doubt whether or not this victim was tied to the previous three, but there were other clues that she was. It didn't matter to most of the working girls in the area. Most of them had stopped working the streets for fear of becoming the next victim. And sadly, area residents, some of them were more focused on less prostitutes. You know, they were happy about that and not as focused on the murders as they should have been. The police continued to investigate, but officers were having a difficult time keeping up with the killer's pace. And before they got very far, another body was found. On December 19th, the body of 28-year-old Nicole Schneider was found near some homes near the Tamiami Trail. Nicole was fully clothed, lying near a small shopping center, but it wasn't just any shopping center. Inside that shopping center, the police were using a vacant retail space as a command post to investigate the murders. So this felt like taunting. The killer left a body right outside where the police were working on catching the killer. It was as if he was saying, you know, I did this right under your nose and you still can't catch me. Nicole was a homeless woman who had been arrested many times for prostitution. By the time this fifth body was discovered, the press had dubbed the killer the Tamiami Trail Strangler because all of the bodies were found along the Tamiami Trail.
Sex is still for sale on the Tamiami Trail. At 9:30 Sunday night, this woman runs to service a customer who is pulled to the side of the road. A woman apparently undeterred by the fact the killer is now preying on prostitutes. A killer or killers, police say, left a fifth victim face down in a Southwest Miami-Dade trailer park early Saturday morning.
She was a known prostitute, has an arrest record for that particular act, and we know the areas that she frequented.
Police have confirmed this latest victim worked on the Tamiami Trail, just like the 4 other victims before her. And this is just one of the reasons police are convinced this latest crime is the work of this serial killer. There were clear links with the 4 other victims, 3 women and 1 male transvestite. All were drug users, all were killed on a weekend, and all were white or Hispanic. Perhaps that is why this woman, who is black, is one of the only prostitutes working on this night. Police are continuing their investigation with the help of hundreds of phone tips, which have come in from the public.
At this point, we're not on the verge of making an arrest, per se, but we are hopeful that in this investigation we will conclude in the very near future.
Sue Keenan, Channel 10 Eyewitness News, Daybreak.
The Tamiami Trail officially opened in 1928. It's a 284-mile stretch of U.S. Highway 41 that traverses southern Florida, connecting Tampa to Miami. The trail passes through the Everglades, and it's known for scenic views and historical significance. But during the 1990s, certain areas along the trail, particularly in Miami, were associated with crime and poverty, and that made these spots vulnerable for illicit activities. This killer was using this stretch of road as his dumping ground, knowing it was a highly traveled area, which meant his victims would be found quickly. He was making no attempt to hide what he was doing. On January 12, 1995, the killer struck again. 21-year-old Rhonda Dunn, an area sex worker, was found along the Tamiami Trail. Just a week before she was murdered, the police had warned Rhonda to stop working the streets. A press conference was held, and Sergeant Felix Jimenez spoke to the media and the public. He said that investigators felt the killer may have been watching Rhonda and had seen her interacting with the police in the week leading up to her murder. Sergeant Jimenez speculated that the killer chose this victim, once again, to thumb his nose at the police, to show them that even though they were warning the women to stop working and they continued, he too was going to continue.
This person can appear to be a very normal person. He has been described as being intelligent, neat, non-aggressive, non-confrontational, and compulsive.
Compulsive, police say, because he's murdered at least 5 prostitutes in 3 months. And if he's not caught, police say, it's likely he'll kill again.
Crime Stoppers, can I help you?
Call after call has provided police with clues, but perhaps the most crucial piece of evidence, right now at least, lies not on the bodies of the victims, but on that of the killer.
We believe, based on evidence, that the 5th victim, Nicole Schneider, was involved in some type of struggle with the assailant. We believe the assailant is injured, has a minor injury, sustained a minor injury, possibly a laceration, a scratch or gouge, an injury that's going to heal and soon may not be seen.
And while the search continues for who police describe as a serial killer in Miami, Fort Myers police are picking up a growing number of murdered prostitutes there. Ironically enough, in an area on the West Coast where the Tamiami Trail ends.
We've been in touch with them. I can't comment on their investigation, of course, but at this time, our case does not appear to be related.
Suddenly, the killer changed his tactics. Rory Conde began hiring a sex worker named Cheryl Peterson. In February 1995, Rory picked Cheryl up and they had sex without any violence. Cheryl asked the killer to pick her up in his car for their second meeting, and she did this so she could write down his license plate number, so she had some evidence to leave behind if she was murdered. Think about how tragic that is. These women are so desperate to make money that they are willing to work knowing full well that their client could be their last. Rory Conde grew attached to Cheryl Peterson. They began meeting more and more often. Rory even offered Cheryl $600 to move in with him. One time when they met in May, Rory told Cheryl that he had purchased a nice ring for her. They got to know each other, and Cheryl began asking Rory about his life, and he told her that he had a wife and children. Cheryl noted that Rory seemed sad when he talked about his life. Fortunately, Rory never attacked Cheryl, and she escaped with her life. Meanwhile, the police were still having a hard time catching this killer.
It appears that this should be number 5, that we feel that a suspect or suspects that have committed the 4 previous would probably be involved in this one, yes.
And like the others, this latest victim, also a prostitute, police say, was found fully clothed, face down, and dumped in a residential area near where she had been working. Since September, the bodies of 4 women and 1 man dressed as a woman were found strangled or asphyxiated. But this time, there may be a witness, Mario Alvarez, who told police he saw victim number 5 just prior to her death.
I saw this guy with this woman. I didn't know what they were doing. I went by without paying much attention.
But the little attention he did pay may give police one more piece to what they're describing as a difficult and intriguing puzzle. Gail Bright, Channel 10 Eyewitness News.
The cops were stymied. They were getting tips every day, and they followed up on those tips, but they led nowhere. For months, they continued looking for the Tamiami Trail Strangler, and then finally, they got a break. The Miami-Dade Police Department, with the help of the FBI Profiling Division, had investigated more than 1,000 potential suspects. They'd reviewed thousands of tips. There were 100 officers working on this case, and the department had spent almost $2 million trying to find the killer. And that's $2 million in 1995 money. All that effort had produced no results, but on June 19th, police received a tip from some residents at Trail Heights Gardens apartment complex. People living in that apartment complex had seen a naked woman bound with rope inside the residence of their neighbor, Rory Conde. The killer had gotten sloppy, and he'd left one of his victims alive in his house. Several people witnessed what was happening inside this apartment, and they called the police. Officers were dispatched to Rory Conde's apartment and broke the door down. Inside, they found 30-year-old Gloria Maestre still partially bound and gagged. She had managed to free herself somewhat, and she was making noise to alert the neighbors to the fact that she was being held in this apartment. Gloria had been sexually assaulted and left in the apartment. Rory Conde had to leave the apartment to go to a court hearing on an unrelated robbery charge. So the cops had a serial killer under investigation for robbery. As Roy returned to his apartment, he saw the police presence and he ran. For 5 days, the police chased this killer. As you can imagine, there was a lot of frustration. They knew who this man was now, but they still couldn't find him. As some officers searched for Rory Conde, others worked to try and link him to the 5 murder victims. Search warrants were obtained, and Rory's apartment was searched top to bottom. Police also searched his Toyota Celica, and they were able to obtain DNA samples. Investigators collected Rory Conde's DNA, hoping to match it to DNA found on the murdered women. The testing was rushed, and it confirmed that Rory Conde's DNA was present at all 5 murder scenes. The police now knew who the Tamiami Trail Strangler was. They just had to catch him. Cops set up surveillance at all of the locations that Rory Conde was known to frequent. They started watching all of his family members' houses, and on the 5th day of the search, Rory Conde was captured and arrested at his grandmother's house in Hialeah. It was over. They had him. Rory Conde was taken into custody on June 24th, 1995. He was immediately taken to the police station for an interview, which lasted for 3 hours. The media went to interview Conde's neighbors, who were shocked to hear that their neighbor was a serial killer.
I want to hear it from him. I want him to say he did it. Those words coming from someone who can't believe it's true. Rory Conde's next-door neighbor, Ana Suarez, says Conde was like a son. The two would have heart-to-heart talks often.
Tell her that he was depressed because his wife left him, that he didn't care much about life anymore, stuff like that. And then he would always, offer her whatever she needed. He was always there for her.
Today, Rory Conde was charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder.
Police say Conde has admitted to going on a 4-month killing spree, killing 6 prostitutes between September 1994 and January of this year. His motive?
He had some problems with his family. That's why he is estranged, and it stemmed from his broken relationship with his wife.
Conde admitting to having sex with the victims and then strangling them. He would then wait until the early morning hours, at which time he would carry the victims out of the apartment and place them in his car.
Then dumping the bodies all over residential neighborhoods close to his home. In the past 5 months, leads began to dry up. That was until last Monday. I heard screams. I thought someone was on fire. We came down and saw a naked woman bound and gagged in his apartment. Raul Rodriguez was there when police found a prostitute tied up in Conde's apartment. Conde had been on the lam until police caught up with him on Saturday. DNA evidence taken from the victim matches Conde's, and evidence was also found in his car and in his home. I never saw anything strange. Every day at 7 in the morning I would see him. He always used to say hi. Jeff Wines here, Channel 10 Eyewitness News.
Before long, the information discovered in this police interview was released to the media and to the public.
His name is Rory Enrique Conde, a 30-year-old salesman, a father of 2, and currently separated from his wife. And police say he confessed that it's his marital problems that motivated him to kill 6 prostitutes.
He had some problems with his family. That's why he is estranged, and it stemmed from his broken relationship with his wife.
Metro-Dade police picked up the salesman after a prostitute was sexually assaulted and robbed in his Sweetwater apartment last Monday. Police say Conde confessed to attacking the woman and leaving her tied up in his bathroom.
The victim was able to free the bindings around her feet and was able to summon help from other residents of the apartment complex, who in turn called police.
Police believe the prostitute could have been his next victim had she not escaped from Conde's apartment. Investigators then took a DNA sample from the victim and made a DNA match with evidence obtained from some of the murdered prostitutes. Shortly after, they tracked down Conde at a relative's apartment in Hialeah and placed him in custody Saturday. They also found evidence in Conde's apartment and car linking him to the prostitute killings.
He admitted picking up all 6 victims on Southwest 8th Street and taking them to his condominium apartment. Conde admitting to having sex with the victims and then strangling them.
Police say he would then wait until the early morning hours, carry the victims from his apartment to his car, and dump them in a nearby residential area. It's a confession that has left Rory Enrique Conde's neighbors in disbelief. I can't believe it. I have to see him on TV, hear him say it himself to believe it.
As the word got around that Rory Conde was the Tamiami Trail Strangler, area residents began to come forward with stories. Neighbors told police that they had seen Conde peeping into bedrooms of young women at night and into the early morning hours. It would have been great if those neighbors had called the police. I mean, I'm just saying, this man might have been stopped sooner. Other neighbors say they saw Rory Conde in the early morning hours dragging duffel bags full of unknown items to his car, sometimes in the middle of the night. What do we always say? If you see something, say something. You're not snitching. You might be saving somebody's life. A co-worker of Rory Conde's came forward and said that one day at work, he and Rory were talking about the Tamiami Trail Strangler. And Rory said, "He's a smart guy. He will never be caught." I mean, give me a break. While in custody, Rory Conde gave an interview to a Spanish-language newspaper called Éxito. During this interview, Rory told the reporter that after his victims were dead, he would spend time talking to their corpses. So yeah, as if this story wasn't creepy enough already, he's talking to his dead victims. What is he saying? He was blaming them for ruining his life. So he's killing these poor women, and then he's blaming them for ruining his life. That might be the most narcissistic thing I've actually ever heard. It also comes out that Rory Conde was given cake and coffee several times before he made his confession. Apparently, he wanted to be made to feel comfortable before telling the police what he had done. He was making demands. Defense attorneys gave press interviews and told reporters that this case was going to be nearly impossible to defend. There was a mountain of evidence against Conde, including DNA, and these attorneys admitted it was going to be a tough case to try. Rory Conde went on trial in October of 1999. He was being tried for the murder of Rhonda Dunn first. Conde was found guilty and sentenced to death. 2 years later, in 2001, he pled guilty to the remaining 5 murders as part of a plea deal arranged by the attorneys. And part of this plea deal forbids Rory Conde from trying to have his sentences vacated. That didn't stop him. Following his convictions, Conde was incarcerated in Florida, and he has made multiple attempts to appeal his death sentence. In 2003, the Florida Supreme Court upheld his conviction and his sentence. However, in 2016, his death sentence was overturned due to a U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Hurst v. Florida, which found Florida's death penalty sentencing procedures unconstitutional. So he will never be executed. As of March 2025, Rory Conde is still awaiting resentencing. The case of Rory Enrique Conde remains a chilling reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by marginalized communities and the profound impact of early trauma on an individual's psyche. But this case is also a prime example of how many criminals refuse to take accountability and go so far as to blame their victims for their crimes. This man beat his wife. He cheated on her. He made his children's lives a living hell. And when his wife finally left him, he took his rage out on the most vulnerable women he could find. I could say some things right now that would get me into a lot of trouble, but I don't think I have to. That's what I love about you guys. We are on the same page. And I think I can say we agree. It is high time for all people to begin taking more accountability for their own problems, their own decisions, and the damage they do for the sake of their own ego. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I sure appreciate you. You know about my podcast? It's on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. I post brand new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. And I want to give a special thank you to my patrons. You guys are really what's keeping me going and have been for a long time. If you join my Patreon, you will get some bonus content that you cannot see or hear anywhere else. Don't forget about our fundraiser. Our community raises money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that has never been tested. We are trying to help solve some cold crimes. If you watch this short video on my channel, it will tell you all the ways you can get a few bucks to me. $5-10 from a lot of people goes a long way, and 100% of your donations go to the cause. I hope you're well. I look forward to talking with you in the comments. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.